And a good Friday afternoon, everybody. Hot stove. It's here. MLB offseason off and running. Awards being handed out, new contracts, and fresh new trade rumors, all to get into on another episode. Our first episode since the season ended. Since the season ended, we were talking World Series, kept up with everything there, giving you some winning plays. Luke Arcaini, all things MLB and Phillies for us on The Gambler. Luke and I on the Phillies here is the name of the podcast. Luke, good afternoon. How we doing, man?
Good afternoon. How we doing? Just saw each other last night over at the watch party.
Unbelievable time.
Not the best football game, but we cashed some bets, had some Miller Lights, we gave some tickets out. It was good. It was a good night.
Excellent, man. Great to have you down there. Of course, the Gambler gang, all rolling deep, and I definitely love the fact that we all take pride in it, man. Very cool. So great to have you down there. Of course, hopping on the stream and talking some football. We did mix in a little MLB conversation quickly about the Phillies because there is some interesting topics. So let's go ahead and get right into it. And as always, you can find us on socials at FoxPHL Gambler. Please go ahead and get involved. If any comments on YouTube, please fire away. A couple things to start with. We'll put the awards to the side. Let's talk about the offseason moves. First and foremost, Rhys Hoskins not coming. Where were you? Not coming back. Where were you as far as surprised? Are you okay with the fact that, look, it's just so immediate? You kind of knew that this was where they were going to go. Just Rhys Hoskins no longer with the Phillies. What goes to your mind?
Yeah, so it was a pretty unfortunate ending for Rhys. With that, the injury back in spring training with the Achilles, he was out all year, and then made somewhat of a push to try and come back. If the team would have gotten to the World Series, there was a pretty good chance he would have maybe gotten a few final at-bats in a Phillies uniform. But it seems like that his time here is up. It's been confirmed now that the first baseman for the Phillies moving forward will be Bryce Harper, which in the long run is the right move when you think about injuries and you think about elongating Harper's career. Harper's will be in the league a lot more years if he continues to play first base rather than going back to the outfield. So it's just pretty much an unfortunate situation for Rhys. The way Dombrowski worded it, there's basically really just no spot for him here anymore. They wish there was, but like you can't bring Rhys back as a bench bat. That's not what he is. So they're gonna move forward with Schwarber at the DH spot and Harper at first, and Hoskins was unfortunately the odd man out. A lot of years here, a lot of big moments. Just wish it didn't have to end that way with him not being able to play a full season, that being his last year here. But I guess that's the nature of the game sometimes.
Yep. And look, when you think about the fact that Rhys was a part of this team for many, many seasons, and it's on to the next for him. I think he's got a bright future, and I think there's going to be a couple teams that will line up for his services. Where do you think, how do you think that's going to play out? Do you think he's going to get a decent contract? Somebody will lowball him? How do you think that's going to play?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to expect with Rhys. Off the Achilles and off these lower body non-contact injuries is always a scary situation to throw a player, especially like Rhys, who's been a pretty hot and cold player throughout his career. My guess is probably nothing longer than 2 years. I think it's going to be a 1-2 year sort of deal somewhere. Whether that's there's been a few names thrown out. Miami has been a name that I've seen the last few months since that. Chicago is a team that I like. The Cubs for Rhys, which could possibly be a landing spot there. Just really, really hoping he doesn't go up to New York with the Mets if Alonso does leave. That's definitely a route that the Mets could look to go if they do lose Pete Alonso, which would be just pull right at the heartstrings watching Rhys Hoskins in a Mets uniform. But I think he's going to gauge interest. I mean, he's a 25 home run hitter. People are going to want that, especially now with the DH in the National League with Rhys's not so great defense. A team looking for a DH would they would love to have Rhys Hoskins. So I think he's going to get a pretty good line of teams here lined up for him. One of those teams will not be the Phillies, but once again, I think it will probably be Chicago, Miami, maybe Pittsburgh. I know a lot of people were saying Pittsburgh. There's going to be a lot of teams out there that are going to look into Rhys for sure.
All right, on to the next. Let's talk about Aaron Nola. What's the latest with Aaron Nola? Give me a percentage on him returning with the Phillies for the next few seasons of his career.
Yeah, so from the day the offseason started, it's been pretty obvious that the Phillies' number one priority is to bring Aaron Nola back. They know the value that he brings to this team. They know the length to games and the amount of innings that he throws a year. He doesn't get hurt. He throws in, he goes out. He's a very valuable piece. But what's unfortunate for the Phillies this offseason is that he is one of the top arms in a very thin pitcher's market. When you think names, you're thinking Blake Snell, Aaron Nola right now. Those are really the top two guys. So if right now I'd give it about a 65% chance. I think right now 65 pushing up to 70. I still think you always have to favor the team that the player once played for. And there's been a lot of reports going around about Nola and the Phillies being nearly $100 million off in talks from last offseason. Take that information with a grain of salt. I would be insanely shocked to believe that the Phillies thought Aaron Nola was a multi-year player for only $100 million. I don't believe that's their case. I think right now a contract Nola could get is probably in the 6-year, 175, 180 mil range. I think he's going to be floating around 25, 30 a year, which based off of his workload over the last 8 years, he's earned it. It's not, you don't earn a contract based off of one season, right? He's proved that he's out there every start. He doesn't get hurt. And it's going to be a pretty interesting market. Along with the other guy, Blake Snell, has been a name that there's been a lot of reports that if the Phillies aren't able to retain Aaron Nola, that they will move on to try and get Blake Snell. Snell most likely going to win the National League's Cy Young this year. Had an unbelievable season in San Diego at a 2.25 ERA. He was first in all of baseball in ERA. 14-9 record with 234 strikeouts. He had an absolutely fantastic year with San Diego. The thing that worries me about Snell is his innings pitched. Blake Snell is not a go deep into games type of pitcher like Aaron Nola usually is when he's at his best. Snell rarely throws over 6 innings. He threw the most innings of his career this year, and that was only 180. So if you put that up against Nola, Nola's gone over 180 5 different times in his career. So the issue right now is if Nola leaves and you fill Blake Snell into that role, where are your other innings? Because you're going to lose pitchers there and you're going to lose innings from these guys. You can't fill Aaron Nola with just Blake Snell. There has to be another move. There has to be more bullpen pieces added, or there has to be a move for another starter. There's been a lot of talks. We'll get into some of the big names, some big outfielders to be specific, but we'll get into some of that. But there's been a lot of things floating around with like Taijuan Walker getting dished, trying to get off of that contract. He has $54 million owed the rest of his contract in Philly. So the Phillies have some options, but I think right now they're still aiming to get Nola back in red pinstripes.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. I'm sure a lot of Phillies fans are excited about that, and some might not be, but I think it's real easy to look out there in the landscape and see who's a possible free agent for them to go after. And if I had my pick, I'd rather run Aaron Nola right back, and hopefully that's the case. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's talk about some hypothetical possible trades out there. Nick Castellanos, I see his name being popped up in the rumor mill. Is that a good move in your mind if they were able to do so? The possibility of moving Nick Castellanos. Why? What is your take on that whole deal?
Yeah, so that's kind of just I don't really know where that kind of came from. There was a report that the Phillies were maybe looking to shop Castellanos to bring some more consistency to the lineup. I don't necessarily agree with it. Only really for the right move. But I think it's pretty hard to pull just take out a 29 homer guy for nothing. There's been some names thrown around, like Jorge Soler, which is a name that does intrigue me a bit. I don't know if I would trade him straight up for Nick Castellanos, but Jorge Soler is definitely a name in free agency that I've been wanting the Phillies to look at for years now. But the whole Castellanos thing is kind of getting a little bit overblown. To me, it's I feel like it's just kind of like it seems like people just need something to talk about with these meetings with the GMs going on. I don't think there's much smoke there. I don't really think Castellanos is going anywhere. I don't think the Phillies want to trade Castellanos. I think they see him in their plans for at least the next 3 years. Once his contract's up, that's a different story. But I don't necessarily see the Phillies moving on from Nick Castellanos just yet.
All right. And then the big name out there that everybody wants to talk about, of course, is Mike Trout. And yeah, we've talked about this one a few years because I was on Fox 29 about 5 years ago, and I did a whole skit on trout fishing. Little older, still a hell of a baseball player. We get the Philadelphia connection. It comes down to him. If he wants out, then I think that the Phillies would be a spot he would like to play. But your thoughts on who he is right now and at this point in time of his career? Still dominant, but can't stay healthy. Like, you just got to be honest with the assessment here. Love Trout, would not turn it down. But you have to be honest with yourself about Mike Trout at this point in time of his career. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I mean, I keep sitting here going back and forth, and what I keep going back to is that it's Mike Trout. Like, other than last season, he hasn't had an OPS under 990 since 2014.
Yeah.
He's put over 1,000 OPS 5 times in his career. He is a 3-time MVP, 9-time Silver Slugger, 2-time, like 11-time All-Star. It's whether we can say he's declining or not. His decline is still one of the best players in all of baseball. There's been basically a thing where people have been saying Mike Trout has sort of been declining over the last 5 years, compared to what he was towards the end of the 2010s. Mike Trout has more home runs than Bryce Harper over the last 5 years in less games. He has a higher slugging percentage. He has a higher on base percentage, and he has a higher batting average. In 5 years where he was in quotes struggling. And apparently his struggle is a 999 OPS in 2022, a 1.090 in 2021, a 993 in 2020, a 1,083 in 2019, and a 1,088 in 2018. It's all I keep saying to myself is that it's Mike Trout. I think if Trout were to ask out, I think the Phillies would be in a good position, right? They have this thing now that they don't have Reese and Harper's at first. That they have a need for a left fielder. They have a need for a right-handed hitting bat. They have options. And I think they finally have players down in the farm system and players up here that are good enough to create a package for Trout. What's nice for the Phillies is a package for Trout isn't what it was 5 years ago. It's still a pretty hefty haul, but it's not anything like it would be if you were trying to trade for Mike Trout in like 2016. So I think there's just like a lot of overblown stuff right now, just because I think everyone knows the Phillies are going to need a left fielder, and they want to add a right-handed hitting bat. They know Ohtani's probably going to leave Los Angeles. By that point, Mike Trout's probably going to ask out as well. So I guess we're doing that thing in Philly where we start to recruit these guys, like we did with Harper, like we did with Turner, like we did with JT. Maybe they can pull for Trout. I mean, it's going to be a little harder than all these other guys because one, Trout has to ask out. He's not a free agent, and two, the Angels have to want to trade one of the best baseball players of all time. So if they're willing to do that, then I think the Phillies are in a good spot. But I wouldn't bank on Mike Trout being in left field next year at Citizens Bank Park. Yeah, although it would be great. It'd be
awesome.
It would be unbelievable.
And I probably look. I'm more than a probably. I'm like an 80%. I'm all about it. Again, you just have to be honest. Like 53 games in 2020. Now that was the pandemic year, right? So
yeah,
we'll bump that to the side. Sorry. He played 36 games in 2021, 119 in 2022. 82 this past season.
Yeah, so 2021 he had the back injury. That was his really other than that throughout his career, he was really healthy. He played over 110 games every season before then. He had the bad back injury in 2021.
Time undefeated, Luke.
Yep. He was fine basically 2022. And then last year was just kind of that fluke hand injury. He got hit in the hand. That can happen to anyone. It happened to Harper, right? That was kind of a fluke thing. But it was really only that 2021 season where he missed a lot of time.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would be look, like I said, 80% here, be ecstatic to score him. Tremendous ball player with the Philly connection. It'd be a lot of fun to be able to watch him out there in the ballpark night in, night out. I mean,
it would be a disgusting lineup too. Like,
yeah, it would be
ridiculous.
Lineup
would be gross. It would be absolutely gross.
And look, if he does get dinged up, you hope that it's not something that will be season ending and just, get us to September. And then you turn it on, you just get back into the playoffs, and you need these bats. You need that high power lineup. And, he's a guy that could hit bombs, 18 bombs last year. Of course, we know what his numbers are. Don't have to go down it. But yeah, Mike Trout would definitely be a plus this offseason. All right. Let's talk a little awards and what's next as far as anything out there for the Phillies. Zach Wheeler, Gold Glove. You had the Silver Slugger Award for Bryce Harper, which was just an incredible season coming off Tommy John. Any other awards coming to the Phillies this offseason?
Not necessarily. Only Wheeler was the winner of the Gold Glove. Bryson Stott, Taijuan Walker, and oh my God, there was one more. JT Realmuto. They were all finalists, but none of them won it. We got robbed from Stott. Nico Horner should not have won that award, but that's a story for another day. Not really much else for the Phillies. Obviously, nobody in the MVP race, nobody in the Cy Young race. Those are really the last two. It's going to be interesting. I think we kind of know who a lot of these winners are going to be. For AL MVP, I think we all know it's going to be Ohtani. For the National League MVP, 99% chance it'll be Ronald Acuna. He earned it. He just had an unbelievable season. Not much else. American League's Cy Young will be Garrett Cole. National League will be Blake Snell. So not really much else on the Phillies side, but those should be announced in the next few days.
All right. And in the next few days, next few weeks, what are you looking forward to the most as far as Phillies are concerned? What's the next move that will that will pop up on our timeline?
I'm just ready to kind of get some more info on Nola. I really want to know what his number is. It's kind of up in the air right now. I would assume it's close to around 200. I'm very curious to see if his agency sort of pushes out what they're looking for. And if there's any teams that are really come out as interested in Nola, because we've heard some teams like the Cardinals be just rumored that need starting pitching. But I'm curious to see what teams actually want Nola specifically. So we should start hearing that in a few weeks. The winter meetings are coming up. So this is when we get into the thick of it here. It's a lot of rumors, a lot of stories, a lot of insanely big contracts thrown out. So it'll be exciting. It's the best time of the year.
Oh, pitchers and catchers will be here before you know it. And
Yes,
oh, by the
sir.
way, Luke, just to let you know, the wife and I started looking at a trip to Clearwater for March.
Oh man, I've never been.
Yeah.
I was also looking at that as well. I've never been to
I'll
spring
give you
training. I really want to go.
I'll give you the window that we're looking at, and then get down there. Maybe we could do some live stuff. You never know. I think
93
that'd be pretty
days.
cool.
93 days. Pitchers and catchers.
I'll keep
We're
you
under
posted
100.
on that. Under 100.
We're under 100.
All right. Luke Arcaini, fantastic stuff as always. Continue to follow everything over on socials. And you can find Luke. It's his last name first, Arcaini Luke. I am Sean Brace. As always, everything podcasted at foxphlgambler.com. Stay up to date on all things Phillies and MLB with us here, Luke and I on the Phillies.
Yes, sir. Go Phils.